day and then people happen. I once was leading a group of artists. That's what I do. Sometimes I produce theater work with artists. And we were producing a show about loving people. And I walked in, it was before the show, and they were all in this green room, and one person had a guitar, and they were strumming it, and they were singing the song. I hate people, I hate people. Wow! But do you ever feel that way? People are hard. People are hard to deal with, and a lot of times what people do is reveal in us our own heart wounds. A heart wound makes it so that instead of bringing life to somebody else, we speak from our wounds. So it's good to notice the wounds in our heart. And these come from what we call implicit memories. So implicit memories are the things that you've stored in your soul from long ago. In fact, people were telling your story even before you were born. Your parents were talking about you 10 years before you were born. Should we have kids? No, let's definitely wait. Okay, how about now? Yeah, let's do that now. I'm not going to go into what they were doing now. So they decided to have kids, and all of a sudden, you know, there you were in their tummy, and they were talking about you. You weren't even here yet. Oh, I hope she has your nose. Oh, I hope she's just like you. I hope she doesn't have your nose. People were telling your story even before you came. And then when you did come, people were still telling your story. Oh, what a cute baby. Does it ever shut up? What a chubby little thing. And as you grow up, furthermore, people keep telling your story. You're a little girl, you're a little boy. Wow, very active. People are constantly speaking words of identity over you. All the way, even now, even as adults, you think that it would stop, but it doesn't. How I got into dance was, I remember I was in junior high. Do you remember junior high? Wow. Let's just try to forget junior high. I teach a lot of junior highs now, and I call it the vortex of life. You know, you're cruising around grade 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They are whacked people. And so there I was, and I was the big girl. They called me Connie Chunk. We had a song back then. I know. We had a song back then, Everybody Wang Chung Tonight. And they changed it to Everybody Connie Chunk Tonight. And I remember everything that I wanted to do, everything I aspired to do was based on this label that people spoke into my story, but I chose to believe. I chose to take that label on. And so when I wanted to step up to the microphone, when I wanted to do something like run in a race, I always thought, but would Connie Chunk do that? No. So I sat down. I didn't stand up when I wanted to because Connie Chunk was dictating my life. And at 22 years old, I was not in a good place with my health. And so I went to a hip hop class in Vancouver where I was living. And there I was, Connie Chunk was about to get down. And I remember at the end we formed this circle. Have you been in one of those? Yeah. Cypher? And I remember everybody was going in. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I gotta go into this circle. The last place you wanna be when you've taken on labels that people have given you is in the middle of a circle. You don't wanna be seen. You wanna be invisible. And yet you so want to be seen. So there I was in the middle of the circle, and I think I clenched my hands like this, and I think I did this. And I walked out of that cypher feeling like I'm never going to that hip hop class ever again. And I came out and someone said, wow, you're so courageous. New label. Knew something was different. Someone spoke something different over my life, and I chose in that moment to say, hey, yeah. Actually, I am. I am courageous. It's courageous to be a 43-year-old mom who dances. It's funny, you know, when we share our stories with one another, when we decide to show up and be seen, who we are in the moment, when we allow others to look into the crevices of our soul and stand there like this, it's the most vulnerable thing we'll ever do. But we give people the opportunity to do something very powerful. In neurology, what happens when I tell you my story and you're listening to me like you are right now, the wires in my brain actually get rewired. My story gets rewritten when you listen to me. I'm healed when I confess my struggles to you. And that's why so many are walking around all bound up. Our hearts were made for freedom, but we've put a prison around our hearts because we're petrified. And living wild does not mean that you're not going to be afraid. Being courageous does not mean that I don't feel fear. Being courageous and living true to myself and true to yourself does not mean that we won't have days where we feel very insecure. It's not about that. It's about rising up. It's about choosing to be who we are, to show up every single day, say, this is who I am. And what happens most of the time is that people receive us, and when they do, our stories are rewritten. The story that you came in here with today, you can leave with a new story. It doesn't have to be the way it is. I believe that anxiety, it's amazing the problem of anxiety right now. Statistically, 1 out of every 5 of you have anxiety. But can I just beg to say that anxiety is actually shame in disguise. I'm not enough for this situation. I'm not going to do a good job. How do you go up after the guy who started say word? Like, you know? That's shame. That's not anxiety. And sometimes we so often look at what's on top and we forget to get curious about what's underneath. There was a season with my son when we were in the darkest time and I drank myself to sleep every night. Not because I woke up one day and thought, ooh, I think being an alcoholic would be fun. It's because I was desperate. I was so full of despair. That year was a year of hell for me. And some of my friends got very concerned about my drinking. And in my head, I was like, you should not be concerned about my drinking. You should be concerned about what got me there. And in bringing people closer, we need to get more curious about what brings people to those places rather than the actual act. The addiction, the problem, the outside is only the outer manifestation of something much deeper that's going on. And we have this opportunity to see people, to see past the outer and to pull out the gold in one another. And when we do that, things change for somebody. Stories get rewritten. We become more of who we were actually meant to be. I love the story of the Velveteen Rabbit. Have you read it as a kid? Oh, it's powerful. Y'all have homework. You gotta go home and you gotta read the Velveteen Rabbit. This little rabbit says to the skin horse in a toy room, he says, what is real? And the skin horse says, real is what you become when a child loves you. Not just to play with, but really loves you. The rabbit asked, does it hurt? And the skin horse said, well, by then your fur has all worn off and you look really shabby. But once you're real, once you are real, it doesn't matter. Because you become when you're brought close. We actually become who we were meant to be when somebody sees something different. There's a man named Jean Vanier. He started something called L'Arche. Have you ever heard of L'Arche? Jean Vanier was one of the Canadian... Do you know? Did you just say you know? Yo, this kid right here. That's what I'm talking about. He was the Governor General's son. From way back, Georges Vanier. And Jean Vanier invited people with disabilities to come and live with him. And now there are L'Arche homes everywhere in the world where they invite people with intellectual disabilities to come and live in a home and just know what community looks like. And he said something very powerful, and I want to close with this. A lot of times these people can't bathe themselves. And he said, you can't bathe someone without peace in your hands. Because if you try to bathe someone with tension, like you're annoyed, like how I bathe my children sometimes, get in the tub. You can't take care of someone without peace in your hands. You can't bring people closer unless you've brought yourself closer first. So tonight I hope you know that you belong. You are a pearl. We're all pearls. And I hope that you allow yourself to be seen every single day.